Gluten cooking workshop. I'm here at Trinity Lutheran Church in Turtle Lake, and I have with me an audience. And thank you Farms for allowing me to do this, and thank you Trinity Lutheran, and also thank you to the SAR Local Foods Grant, which has also funded several of our opportunities with this. And so, pardon?
And the extension office.
Okay, and the extension office, yes, as well. So, and thank you to our camera person who we can't see behind there right now. Irene Graves is our camera person. So I'm going to, for those of you watching, I'm going to turn between the audience and to the camera. And I hope I'm talking loud enough. I got to remember that I have to use camera voice today. So we're going to make three things. We're going to make a low gluten cookie, a chewy amaranth chocolate chip cookie. We're going to make a pizza crust that can also substitute as a lefse. And so as a grower of amaranth and quinoa, I've had a lot of fun experimenting. And I'm not done experimenting, but I've tried to use as many local things as I can. The amaranth flour I did grow and grind. It's still an experiment because we had a little bit of pigeon grass in there, but I ground it anyway. Quinoa I'll serve once I get it clean, and I'm confident once I get my screens I can do it, so I use bought quinoa for that. Brown sugar was purchased. Eggs are courtesy of Betty Miller. The vanilla is courtesy of Tijuana. It's much better out of Mexico than it is around here, so we're going to use the good stuff. And of course you have baking soda, chocolate chips, and things like that. And so we'll start with, I pre-measured some of my ingredients, and we're going to start with the wet ingredients first. So we have 1 egg for this, and I like to mix it up in a bowl. I crack them in here separately in case the egg is bad, and we can dump that into here. And so I try to make this for the beginning person working in the kitchen. I have salt here. I gotta find it. I lost it. There we go. We have a pinch of salt, and so when I say a pinch of salt, I'm very cautious about this. My hands are washed. I'm very meticulous about that. I pour a little bit in. That is a pinch, and so I don't want to overdo it because once you put it in, it's not coming out. And let's see what else we have in here. A cup of packed brown sugar, and so this is a standard cup. Not a pretty cup, but it does do the job. And we'll place that in here. I like honey with things too, but sometimes you can't always use that. I'm finishing off 1 bottle of the dark vanilla from Tijuana, and this tastes way better than anything we get here. And so
better not finish that off.
I think that's about a tablespoon, which is what it's going to take.
Okay.
So we're just going to dump that in. We ended that bottle. And let's see here. Then we have 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So this is 1/2 of a teaspoon here, and I'm going to eyeball it. There we go. I think I've eyeballed it though. I'll see if you can see it on the camera, if anyone else can see it here. Good enough? I think so. And we'll leave that there. I haven't made this recipe a lot, but I make a lot of different cookies. So I do like to experiment with that. And the last thing, I think I thought I need water in this, or is that my other recipe? Let's double check. Oh, I guess we're ready for butter. I put the butter back on the water heater. I put it on the water heater so it would get to be room temperature. Butter in here, it takes 8 tablespoons, which is exactly 1 stick. So this is, I guess we're down depending on who you ask, we might be down the road of being unhealthy now, but that's okay. Some things have to have something bad in there for us, right? I think. All right, does anyone have questions so far? I know those of you watching, it's a little hard to ask questions, but I do like having things be semi-interactive, if possible. There we go. The oven is preheated, the pans are already greased. And so what I'll start with is mixing this together. I use a wooden spoon.
Ingredients. Yeah.
So now I'm priming my ingredients here. We had to find mix it on low, don't mix it on high because it'll fling everything everywhere. You can see how the butter mixes. This looks like typical cookie dough using white flour, I think. This is not white flour. Well, the white flour isn't in here yet, but then you we can increase it. And when we're done, we have goo, sweet tasting goo. Now we're ready for the amaranth flour. And so I need 1 3/4 cups of amaranth flour. I ground this morning, and amaranth flour is a little bit, can be a little tart. Guess it depends. Oops. I like to pack it in so I know that I had it even. And this takes 1 3/4 cup, and I'm going to use my 3/4 cup, which I have sitting in the tapioca starch right here. And so you could use tapioca starch with this as well.
Ivan,
Yes.
just a suggestion. Do you want the bowl to move around? Otherwise, you could get a cloth and dampen it and put it underneath for stability.
Nope, that doesn't bother me if
Okay.
it moves around. That's fine with me. I don't mind it. I usually always let it move around with me at home too, so could do that. I'm gonna double check my recipe. It's always a good idea to keep it to your side. And I think we are golden there for 1 3/4. Yep. And the last part, one of the best parts, is chocolate chips.
Okay,
I have
don't you
these.
think you should mix it first before,
And so
then mix them in by hand?
I guess I can mix them in by hand. Not always.
Chocolate chips.
I move it to the side. Go from low to fast speed. I usually stop because I'm getting thick. This is the way I like it. The cookie dough. And I'm going to move it one more time. There we go. I hold my hand above it to keep it from flinging. There we go. I need someone here to clean these off, but we'll worry about that later. And this, I'll measure a cup of these. It's almost a cup. Can't have too many chocolate chips. Chocolate chips are usually gluten-free. It's always a good idea to check on the package. And I'd say, a little bit more for good measure. Just because. And then with that, I'll mix them up by hand then.
You use a wooden spoon so you don't break that plastic spatula.
So far, here's what we have. This looks like not your typical cookie dough because it's darker. That's okay. There we go. Now we are ready for
You gotta mix it
making
a little
making the
better. I can
cookies
see
on
dough
the-
on my side one.
putting the cookies on the pan here. I bought one of these. These are a blessing. It's much easier than taking a spoon and trying to spoon off. Behind me I have the pan. So I go against the bowl, so this is even, and I plop 3 across the pan this way is what I do.
Do you flatten them out after?
Nope. I did that one time and they completely spread out.
Oh,
The oven is preheated at
Okay,
350.
but didn't it say to flatten it?
Nope.
Oh,
I was a creature of habit and flattened them.
oh, but I thought it
So-
said to flatten.
And so these will, because they really spread out, so I'm going to leave them high.
I like to flatten them because I was worried about them not getting done in the center.
I like them not done in the center sometimes because I like them chewy. That's my opinion.
I have a question. A lot of times with gluten-free baking, you use xanthan gum, but I noticed you haven't used any xanthan gum.
Mhm. This recipe didn't have any, and they did stick together pretty good. And that's so,
Okay.
That's the purpose.
I
of
noticed in a
xanthan
lot of
gum.
the recipes, they did have xanthan gum, and this one did not. And because I didn't just, I did try one recipe of a flatbread, it completely fell apart. So that one could have should have had xanthan gum or tapioca starch or something. But this, I gotta say, if you bake them too long, they get a little, where they kind of come apart a little bit. I like them kind of chewy. Thank you, Ace Hardware, for selling things I like. I like the toys they have there. This makes life so much easier. I remember as a kid seeing using the spoon to spoon it on there, and that was just not a fun job. The pan is greased. I think that's a must. Even though these do have butter in them, I still think it's necessary to grease it, just so it'll come off a little easier. And we have a little bit of leftover dough. I'm a huge fan of cookie dough. That's they should sell that in a bottle, but they don't. So all right, we got 15 cookies on the pan. The oven behind me is preheated at 350. And I will set the timer for 10 minutes. So we got 10 minutes to do other things. I bet we could probably make the quinoa salad in 10 minutes. I think we could. So what I have fixed behind me is a kettle of quinoa. I got this at the store. Now I have some too. Once mine is cleaned, I'll be cooking my own. But this is 1.5 quarts of water to 3 cups of quinoa is what this is. And I did not strain this. I cooked it until the water was gone. And so this is a 3-quart kettle, so it worked out perfect. And now the timer was set so this was stirred every 2 minutes. So that gives you ample opportunity to stir it so it isn't glopping together, burning, or getting undercooked, overcooked, and won't boil over. And so what we have for that, we have a variety of items. We have extra virgin olive oil, apple cider vinegar, we have honey. Now our honey comes in 5-pound jars, and so I have that here. And I admit, whenever I use honey, I never measure this, but that's each of their own. Pick them up on that way. And it's still somewhat warm. It is a good idea to cool it, but I don't mind having some salad kind of warm once in a while too. This can be used in lieu of couscous, which is a pasta. And so what we have here is oil. And so I would add 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil to this. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And I have the apple cider vinegar. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons to this. 1, 2. Vinegar has been made for centuries, actually thousands of years, and made from a variety of items. And so this is something that you can get different flavors of, and sometimes the bitter against sweet can be a good combination. There is an International Museum of Vinegar in the US, and so it is a fun tour. And then I have honey. Now I often measure, well, I don't often measure with a cup, I'm more of a pouring in, but I will use a cup this time. So what I'll use is, because people would wonder, well, how much should we put in there? I'm using the 2/3 because my cup is kind of used for dry goods. So I'm going to fill out 2/3 of a cup with honey and dump that in. And let it drizzle in. I'm a fan of a lot of honey, actually.
Use the spatula.
There we go. You're okay. And I didn't have another spatula, so I'll just go with this one here. There we go. And then I have 3 Roma tomatoes. I like Roma because they're not as wet, not as juicy. That's my preference. These have been cut, diced, and you can probably see how smaller cut. Camera person, can you see okay? All right. I don't know if I'm having as much fun as Julia Child does. I think she threw more things around the kitchen. I have a green pepper, a green bell pepper, and a red onion in here. This is about half of a red onion and half of a green bell pepper here. You can use any type of bell pepper, and which you could smell on the air, but the aroma is really good. We'll place that in there. There we are. And then we can stir this together. And I have grown up using much smaller bowls than I should have, but I always make it work without spilling all over the place. But I'm thinking of how, each to their own in the kitchen. And when you stir this together, you'll be able to see that the juices are starting to come in, because we have the vinegar, we have the oil, and the honey. And I think that's a really good combination to bring out flavors. Because I like a bit of bitter and a bit of sweet, actually a lot of sweet. So I have there's a lot going on here, I think, in this type of salad, and it's fast and it's easy. And come the summer, we often grow a lot of these things in the garden. You can have this in your kitchen as well, and it's simple. Because I think of when you go to potlucks, all of the pasta salads we have, they have pepperoni, peppers, they have tomatoes. They often have a oil or vinegar base with something sweet. Well, here's an alternative in case you have some gluten issues or just don't want pasta. Because there's a lot of white flour pastas out there. So what we have is, you stir it thoroughly, then cool it.
I can smell it clear over here, it's great.
Can everyone else smell it?
Yeah, I can smell it.
First, Ruth, I should ask, does your nose work too? I don't know. But
Yeah, it does.
Okay, and I don't smell the best, but I can smell this, which is nice. And so for those of us here, we get to eat this afterwards. So there's a plus to that. That was really simple, and we did it in under 10 minutes. The cookies aren't quite ready to come out of the oven yet. I think they're really close. Did it? Okay, 2 minutes. About 2 minutes to go, and the cookies come out. Let me pause the camera. Lightly brown around the edges.
Beautiful.
I think it looks really good. What? Are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Oh,
where,
okay.
where are the nuts?
I forgot the nuts. But I had them in a bag on the side. But well, I can bring I have the salad right behind me too. So since we're rolling, the cookies have just come out of the oven, 10 minutes, and they kind of rolled out very nicely, I think. I have flattened them up, and then they get just really flat like a sugar cookie. And that's a little too flat for me. I know there was some discussion about what's all in this, nutrition-wise.
And why would you want to eat quinoa instead of pasta? Is there an
So-
advantage to eating quinoa?
So the advantage is if you're gluten intolerant, probably want to eat something without gluten, hence quinoa and amaranth don't have gluten. Another issue is it's higher in protein and higher in fiber, where pasta made primarily of white flour is lacking fiber, and it has some protein but not as much as quinoa. So there are some advantages here. So we can still enjoy our sweet stuff, even if we have some gluten issues, and technically this is a whole grain, because I've ground the whole grain, and it's higher in fiber, higher in protein.
Now, quinoa has the same nutrient value as dried milk.
That's true. And I'm trying to remember what is all in the nutrient value of dried milk. It's higher. It has a higher protein content than liquid. What else can we say about it? I know you can dry it down, then you have, it's easier to store, much like a dry grain.
And it has most of the essential amino acids.
Essential amino acids.
Actually, the quinoa, the amaranth is the highest of the essential amino acids that are in it, more complete diet. And once you...
Okay, I remember reading that, with amaranth does have more amino acids than quinoa. And if you had your long list of typical grains grown, with the amino acids, the amaranth was higher on the scale than some others. And I thought soybean wasn't too bad when it came to amino acids, but I think amaranth did have it beat, if I remember correctly.
Well, they still smell like regular cookies. They smell awesome.
It's a lot. We probably should sample, huh? But I do have more dough left for a second batch. Make a gluten-free pizza crust that can double as a flatbread. And so the flatbread, you could use it to you could use it as naan bread like they do in India, rip off a piece and prick up your food with it and eat it, or you could put butter on it and sugar, or brown sugar or honey, and eat it like lefse. And so it's a dark, I don't know, lefse if you will, or a dark piece of fry bread. But if you go to India or Pakistan, The non-bread they have, which is like the tortilla we have here, is a variety of colors depending on the grain they used. And so we're going to use an amaranth grain to make this pizza crust. And so what I've started with is our liquid ingredients. Again, I started with a pinch of salt. I already added that in here, which was literally a pinch because it's easy to overdo. So I'll put that onto the side. I have extra virgin olive oil. I'm tripling my recipe, which is, this is 12 tablespoons of olive oil. I have 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and I'm gonna dump that in. And we're going to stir that up. Notice what the vinegar does, it changes the appearance a little bit. I love using vinegar. I love adding vinegar to items. The next item we add is tapioca starch, which is also known as tapioca flour. And so this helps kind of hold things together to a point. And what I have here is 3/4 of a cup of tapioca starch. And we're just going to dump that in. And we're going to give it a pat, get every morsel out, and put that to the side. And then I'm going to mix that up. This reminds me of baking powder or baking soda, more like baking powder. If you use large amounts.
Glenda?
You have it mixed thoroughly. Yep. Oh, okay. Bring it a little further.
You just
forward.
tip it just a little bit more so we see the inside. There we go.
So pardon those watching at home. I don't know if you can hear the other people talking, but I like this being, this is nothing wrong with being interactive. So I forget that I have to look at a camera because I'm not used to having a camera look at anything I do. I wonder if I was tipping it the wrong way. All right. There we go. I'll give another hit just to get it all off. We also need our water. We have 3/4 of a cup of water. Add that in there. Mix it again.
Does that have to be warm?
It can be lukewarm is okay, but not hot.
What happens if it's hot?
What?
What happens if it's hot?
I'm not sure.
You never do
Ooh,
it that way,
that's-
then, huh?
It'll just turn into a gumball.
Gumbo. Maybe that's why one bread recipe didn't turn out the best.
Could be.
But if you use wheat bread, it's got to be warm, but not super hot. Now it looks like we added egg and water, even though there's no egg in this. There we go. Let's see, I'll put that in. Now we have our amaranth flour. We ground this morning. It'll take 2 1/4 cups. I got 1 cup, I got a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to level it off in the bag with 1 cup. Two cups. And we'll use this again when we roll it out. Oop, not quite level. There. 2 1/4 level cups. Now I got my spoon and we'll stir it up. Notice how this is not your typical looking pizza crust or lefse, but you know, lefse is kind of bland until you add sugar, or brown sugar, or cane sugar, or honey to it. Depends on what your preference is. Notice how it's coming together. I think it's sticking together well so far. Make sure you scrape the bottom so nothing gets left out. And I tend to press it down as a mixing to mix. Kind of get things together. Then stirring it over and flipping it, stir it over again and flipping it, and press down. And camera, can we see this okay? All right. And I'll provide my email address at home for at the end, so those of you who have questions can have about email me. But it's sticking together very nicely. My oven is preheated at 400 degrees, which is what it's supposed to take to bake these. So what we're going to do is to bake the pizza crust first, bring it out and put the other ingredients on and bake it again. And the oven is preheated at 400 degrees. My pans are greased. But the fun part is we got to roll it out. Just like we do lefse. Okay, so what we did is we put the dough on the pan, put the wax paper over it. We're gonna roll it out on here.
See how that works.
Between the rolling pin and the wax paper. This will be a thinner one. I think I could have, we'll probably say this one is a flatbread. Now my pan is an older pan and it's kind of kitty wampus, but it would probably roll out a little better if it wasn't kitty wampus. That's okay. But what's nice is, look at that, it came right off. And I think this is the right thickness for flatbread. I'm gonna put it to the side
Just tilt it just a little bit.
and we can see.
Excellent, excellent.
And this is grease, so I'm not worried about the flour on there. Next what we'll do is we'll do another one. This is the pan I used yesterday. I'm gonna use a little bigger clump of dough. I'll put my flour on here. I have flour. Save it all. There we are.
Scooch it around.
So let's more. We should have a little more.
Feel like you're going gold panning.
Get in here. There we go. Now I've got it spread around. Let's put this on. We're gonna put it in here. Press it down. Put wax paper over it. Press it down again. So here's what we look like.
Clement,
More flour on the top.
under the wax paper.
Or you might not get the wax paper on. There you go.
There we go. Wax paper.
Perfect.
I like audience participation. This
We're all learning.
It has been a learning process, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a lot of whole wheat baking, and from the first time I did it to when I finished up the season for the farmer's market, it was a lot easier to make, and there's a lot of things I learned with working with it.
I bet you that stuff would be good for making ravioli too.
This or
Yeah.
whole wheat? Both. I have the machine. I should try making ravioli because I got the machine. It's brand new. Someone lent it to me. It hasn't even been used yet. So we should try that. Because amaranth flour and quinoa flour is used to make pasta. And so, be a good try. So I rolled it.
It looks like the same consistency.
Kind of does,
Uh-huh.
yep. And so I rolled it 3 times one way, and I want to roll it 3 times the other way. I turn my pan. It's about 3 times. Let's turn it again. I want a little bit thinner here. I want a little bigger crust. Let's turn it again. Is this one perfectly round? No, but if I wanted to, I could lay a bowl on it and cut the edges off if I wanted to. I'm not, but it's semi-round. Turn it around. It'll all taste the same anyway. But I know for some cooking shows that I wouldn't last because it wouldn't be aesthetically pleasant to look at. Now I'm touching it to see how thick it is. And I'm going to press with my hands. So this is, I think we're a little thinner than a 1/4 inch on this one. I guess I could have even made it bigger, but I do have cake pans as well. So what I thought I'd do is, and this is for sampling. Let's try now, see if it peels off. And look at that.
Voila!
That's wonderful. We have this. I guess I could have used a little bigger wad of dough. But there's enough here that'll cover, the next one I do will cover this perfectly, I think. And so next step is, we're gonna bake this for 10 minutes at 400 degrees. And so the oven is preheated. This one had more flour on it. This one didn't have as much. But now, so what I do is we let them cool and I cut them up with a piece of cutter. But then with this warm, I can put my ingredients on it and we bake it. The pizza crust has come out of the oven, and I apologize for it not being perfectly round because I just laid up like a bowl over it, but I'm happy with the way it looks. And so it's all gonna end up in the same place anyway. So what I do have is, we have canned tomatoes, but they're a little runny, so I bought some tomato paste. We're gonna scoop some of that out, and we're gonna do a coat of that here. It's like spreading butter to a point.
What's that you're putting on
I'm
now?
putting on tomato paste.
Oh, tomato paste.
Yep. And I didn't want it to be too runny, because if I put canned tomatoes on, I think it would just be a runny mess on the pan.
Yeah, it would soak in.
So this is a pureed tomato with minus a lot of the moisture. This is going to be a vegan or a meat-free pizza, because I thought if I had meat, I would have probably pre-cooked it, but that's okay. So I'm going to try and spread it out fairly evenly. The nice thing with the pizza, with this paste, it's already been cooked and canned, so that it only needs to be warmed up in the oven. So I'm going to try and get close to the edge as I can with this. So what I'm doing is following, I'm kind of hugging on the edge with the spoon.
How much are you putting on it?
So I have a can, my can is 12 ounces. I've used a third of it,
Okay.
this size. So you kind of have to play it by ear to see how much would it take to go on here. All right. There we go. I also have finely chopped red onion and green pepper. And now there's always a little bit of juice in there, and so I'm tipping it. I don't want the juice on there because it would get to be a little much. And I'm going to sprinkle it on there and try and get it spread evenly. I am a fan of onions, and so I like having an oniony anything, but I know that's each their own. So the nice thing with pizza is that you can experiment and fix it the way you want it. So if you don't like onions, leave them off. If you love them, go heavy with them. What I wish I had was some fresh garlic, but I didn't have any of that. But I'm a garlic lover. So we're going to go on there. Now because they're finely chopped, they shouldn't take long to cook. I don't like my vegetables soggy when they come out of the oven, so if these aren't, as long as they're good and warm, I'm happy. And then we have some cheese. I bought Mexican cheese. I say pick what you like, and we'll sprinkle some on here. I might have to use my fingers to get a little bit of it. It's kind of clumped together. So we're going to spread that out kind of evenly.
Are you gonna put mushrooms on there too?
And mushrooms will go on this as well. Not the whole can, but I'm going to kind of pick and choose with my mushrooms here.
So you don't use any spices in it?
I didn't put any spices in. I guess I'm relying on the flavor of the cheese and the vegetables for the flavor here. And the dough itself doesn't have any spices other than a little bit of salt. That beep told me that the oven is preheated. We're at 475, and so the range for baking is going to be between 5 and 10 minutes. So I'm going to take a spoon here and scoop out a few mushrooms and kind of place them around. But not that it's all, so it's not all covered with mushrooms. Did you like mushrooms? Okay. Does everyone like mushrooms, I hope?
Yep.
Okay. No one's allergic? Hopefully not. That's a challenge, but sometimes there's allergy. You can't always cook what you want. Or add what you want there. That's hard to remember once in a while.
What would happen if the onions were underneath the cheese? Would they still,
I think they'd still get that. Yeah. I like mine a little. No, I don't like my onions sauteed and soggy. I like them to have a little bit of crunch, but that's just my preference. Everyone's different, so you have to kind of cook this the way you like it.
Mushrooms are good for the heart.
So I think we're ready to go in the oven. We're about to pull the pizza out of the oven. It's been about 10 minutes, and there we go. Our pizza it looks good. This is a tomato paste, green pepper, red onion, Mexican cheese, and mushroom pizza. Yours is, I wonder if should I do it in,
Little squares.
we'll do it in little squares. Let's do it like that. There's a sizzle. I'll cut it this way too. There we go.
What's the significance to the sizzle?
The cheese touched the pan and it's hot.
Oh,
It's just a good sound
It's a good
of
sound.
doneness.
Yep, I've done this. There we are. So the edges are a little crisp,
That's good.
but we know it's done. All right. I think we are ready to eat, so for those of you at home who are seeing this, I wish you could partake of this. So I've been given the go ahead to make the cookies again. The audience did approve. We have to approve of this. Pizza's just come out of the oven, and so we have amaranth cookies, we have amaranth pizza crust, and we've done this in relatively under 2 hours, maybe less than that. I should check the time, but this is 100% amaranth cookie, amaranth flour. We have a quinoa salad that took under 10 minutes. And these are things that are now being locally grown in North Dakota. So basically all the ingredients of the chocolate chips, we don't have that in the state yet. But we have options for getting this locally. And if you'd like more information on how to cook gluten-free pizza and a quinoa salad, and finally for dessert, oop, I got on my pizza there, a cookie, you can contact Farms or contact me and my email. I'll spell it for you, glen.philbrick@gmail.com. And thank you for joining us today. There we are.